Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon and welcome to the post 10. How to handle a rejected PhD application and how to make it better next time. Yes, this post comes via request from a great friend of mine, but more of that in a second. This is a post of rejection, and it will become the basis of a rejection trilogy. Obviously, let me tell you how we got here. So a great friend of my last vlog series, Little Hen 33, wrote to me with quite a poignant request. Quote, "Hey Tara, sending love from the UK." Big love back to the UK. Hi everyone. Loving the videos and the podcasts. Thank you, Little Hen. So helpful to someone coming into academia in middle age. We'll return to that shortly. I just had my PhD application rejected, so I'm feeling a bit lost. Do you cover this situation in any of your videos? How to make the best use of the time with what lies in front of me before I can apply again? Any recommendations on how to make the best use of this time? I'm already lecturing and have a research role. End of quote. Little Hen, I am so sorry that this has happened to you, but in response, I'm creating a bespoke trilogy of posts for you. The first one, this one, is the nuts and bolts video for you. So, okay, how to manage the application issue and how to make that application better next time. We're doing the application focus. The next vlog for you is going to focus on the emotional stuff. So as you've said, you're a little bit shocked, you're a little bit upset. So we're going to talk about the personal and professional responses to rejection. And I finish off the rejection trilogy with a little bit of a special moment, I hope. You raised the issue about middle age, and so I particularly wanted to address that. I wanted to talk about the gift of age, not only personally, but professionally, and also how you transform academic life and indeed research more generally. The gift of middle age will be our final video in the rejection trilogy. But this first installment, I'm going to be absolutely honest with you. Most of you know I've been involved in higher education for 30 years. I've been involved in doctoral education for 25 years. I was a Dean of Graduate Research for close to 6 years. So everything that could have happened in an application, I've already seen before. I know how the saga ends. So let's therefore go with my Tara's 10 tips for handling a rejected PhD application and how to make it better next time. One, important one. Always submit multiple applications to multiple universities and multiple supervisors, advisors. Now, as many of you may have worked out from my incredibly glamorous vista around me, Jamie and I are currently in temporary accommodation, and we've been in temporary accommodation at this point for about 4 months. So we're trying to buy a house and we're failing pretty badly. And can I say, this is really unusual for me because I'm not picky. Trust me, I'm not picky. My last 4 houses, I only visited 4 houses. I went through them in 20 minutes and I decided to buy them in 20 minutes. So I am not a picky buyer girlfriend. But what I've noticed, just commenting, what I've noticed, and maybe it's been caused by all those damn real estate programs, right? But the sellers and the real estate agents appear to have drunk the Kool-Aid, seriously drunk the Kool-Aid, and they're talking about dream homes and dream lifestyles. Now imagine talking to a physicist and a cultural studies academic about a dream home. Just for noting, my dreams are for wage equity, a lift in the minimum wage, redistribution of wealth, food and energy security. They're my dreams. I know Jamie's dream as a physicist is to use physics to find a way to manage and address climate change. They're our dreams, not the configuration of a suburban house. But I see a lot of students, for example, wedded to a particular dream about how their PhD should be, what a PhD candidature should look like. They have a dream doctorate, a dream supervisor, a dream institution. And this dream very often cascades into mud, because the higher education sector around the world right now is incredibly volatile. So the first advice I must give you is don't have a dream, live a reality. Apply to multiple institutions and multiple supervisors. Now, my target, I think, is really 5. So put applications in for 5 universities and 5 supervisors. And spend time researching those supervisors, advisors, and researching the institutions. So do some strong applications, but do it 5 times. Remember the cliche that our mothers used to teach us, don't put all your eggs in one basket. That cliche existed for a reason, and let's follow it through. There's not a dream house. I'm speaking from the beige palace. There's not a dream house, and there's certainly not a dream supervisor. So find 5 strong supervisors and put in applications. Now, I know a lot of the supervisors and advisors out there watching this video today are probably at this point really disappointed in me, and I understand why. We as prospective supervisors, advisors, spend a lot of hours working with students to enable their application. In some cases, hundreds of hours. I recently, with a PPP student, read 12 books. They were doing a PhD by prior publication. 12 books were submitted. I read all 12, offered advice, explained how that can all fit together, and the student hasn't emailed me in 6 weeks since I told her how to effectively do that candidature. So I get that we as supervisors, prospective supervisors, spend a lot of time with those students. But we as supervisors, advisors, we got to get with the program. We have to acknowledge how volatile, how agitated our universities are right now, and students can't rely on these systems being stable because they're not. So the advice is apply to different institutions. Then as a student, you can choose. Also, please remember that a lot of universities now run a digital doctorate program, so you're not remotely limited to the institutions in your local area, and indeed do a bit of an investigation about international doctoral programs, digital doctoral programs. You may find that a PhD is much cheaper in another country, and you didn't know that because you didn't ask. So put in that application. Point 2, spend time doing your background check on prospective supervisors and advisors and institutions. Oh, this is a crucial one. One of the key reasons that students are rejected by supervisors and they're rejected by institutions is that they've not done their homework on the prospective supervisor. This is, I think, about 90% of the rejections come from this. Because I receive pretty well on a daily basis a request from students to supervise their theses that happen to be in the areas of chemistry, mathematics, and engineering. Now, I have a pretty wide range of research interests, but you can probably pick up from the first set of Google returns, when you put my name into Google, you can probably pick up that I'm not an engineer. So when I receive a request from a student asking me to be a prospective supervisor on an engineering thesis, then I know that they haven't done their research. So before you apply to an institution, before you remotely think of sending an email to an academic, give them the courtesy of spending 15 minutes and doing a Google search and a Google Scholar search, so you understand their qualifications, their background, and their research interests. It's never been easier to find out the interests of a supervisor or advisor, and yet 80 or 90% of the students that approach us haven't even done that work. And I cannot tell you how terrific it is to engage with a student who knows your work, has actually done research work themselves, demonstrated disciplinary literacy, and is prepared for the doctoral journey. I can't tell you how wonderful that is. So when you approach those 5 supervisors or advisors, please do your homework. If you disrespect academics in that first email, they will simply delete it. Won't reply, they'll delete. And 3, oh yeah, don't send generic request emails to multiple people in the same institution. So another key reason that students get rejected is that they treat supervision and enrolment in a university like taking a handful of marbles and throwing it into a fish pond. Now, so what happens is they write a generic email and then they send it to, say, 30 people in the same institution, and all they do is sort of change the heading. So Dear Ralph is changed to Dear Tara, and sometimes they don't even do that. So we endlessly get emails where I'm addressed as Dear Sir. That's cool. My voice is low, I understand that, but yeah, Dear Sir, yeah, nah, you even got the gender wrong. Good luck with that. So I also note, for example, that the font of the salutation, so Dear Sir, Dear Tara, that font is different to the rest of the email. So what happens in these circumstances very quickly is someone from the graduate office or the graduate centre works out that this single student has sent like 20, 30 or more emails to people throughout an institution. And of course, that again demonstrates a complete disrespect for the institution and to prospective supervisors, because it shows that you haven't done your homework. You're simply getting a bunch of marbles and throwing them out and hoping that they hit something. Okay, if someone is going to supervise you, spend thousands of hours of their life away from their families and caring for you, then you need to show respect for that supervisor and their workplace. Oh, and speaking of graduate offices, 4, big one. Spend time seeking out an Office of Graduate Studies or Research. Contact them early, before you contact academics, and get to know the administrative procedure. This is important. The greatest friends that a PhD student will ever have are the administrators, are the staff in a graduate office or a graduate centre. So while you're preparing that email to prospective supervisors, write to the admissions, the graduate admissions email at the university. Say you're interested in the institution, you're interested in this particular program, and you're currently researching supervisors. So the administrators are going, oh, this is going well, tremendous. And you ask the administrators if they can provide you with some generic information about the admissions process. Oh yeah. Now, those administrators will love to hear from you because you are respecting them and they will respect your preparation, and they are going to provide you with the key information that's going to increase your chances. And they'll also remember your name. So if something goes wrong finding a supervisor or something goes wrong through the admissions process, they will help you because they know you have respected the process. They'll remember your name. Oh yeah. 5, work on the quality of your email. This is the first approach. Another key reason that students are rejected from the program is actually the quality of that first email. You have 2 minutes to make an impact on an academic. 2 minutes. We receive hundreds of emails every single day. So this email must be well written, concise, respectful, and to the point. Explain what you are interested in. Explain why you are interested in them as a supervisor, advisor, and what you've done previously. If you can, the first or the final paragraph should say why you're interested in a PhD and why it matters to you. So make sure that this initial email is formal. It's not a vibe, it's not a text message, this is formal. You are asking this person to give you some of their life. Make it formal and make it well formatted. Don't use the equivalent of wingdings to make your point. You are conveying your expertise in writing, your expertise in research, your commitment and your passion for ideas, and your respect for the supervisor, all in one email. So make sure you do this. And if you don't do this, you cannot expect the academic will reply to you. Now, I beg academics not to delete emails, even if we get a well-dodgy one, just at least have the courtesy to reply. But you can understand busy academics get something random, dear Ralph, how's it going, bro? And they just go, I'm out, delete, right? So just be aware your whole approach may be over in 20 seconds, depending on that first email. 6, think about your degree of flexibility in the choice of your topic area. Your degree of flexibility in the topic area. Now, obviously you are approaching academics in a subject area in which you are interested. Now, colleagues in the humanities and the social sciences, we much more expect that you approach us with a fully fleshed out proposal. So we expect you to approach us with you knowing really what you would like to do. And we often get a proposal that's very exact and precise in what the student is doing. And that's great. So we go, oh, right, this person's done their homework. Tremendous. Now, the colleagues in the sciences and engineering are a little bit different because they're interested in you more than the project. They're interested in if you have the disciplinary literacy, particularly in the experimental sciences, to be able to do the work, do the research. And you're probably in the sciences going into an already existing lab, and you may indeed be slotted into an already existing project. So therefore, whatever your discipline, be very clear about your strengths. What are you as a researcher? What are your strengths? And what's your research expertise? And also know that in the humanities and the social sciences, we will be expecting a pretty good and clear area, a pretty clear proposal. In the sciences, they're assessing you really as a scientist. They're assessing you rather than the project necessarily. So therefore, be very clear, whatever your discipline, about your strengths as a researcher and the areas of research you've done in the past and why they are meaningful. 7, consider starting part-time. Now, for students who are trying to match up scholarship, that is funding for a candidature and an enrolment or candidature itself, it is getting increasingly difficult. What few people tell you is it helps you if you start part-time. So if you haven't got the funding and the candidature lined up, start part-time, because then you're present and you're active in the university, and if a funding source appears, you're already in the program, so the funding source goes your way. That's particularly important in the sciences. So you're there, you're doing the work. If a funding source is available, that funding source goes to you. Now, so many of my students did their first year part-time. They worked incredibly hard and they got a scholarship for the rest of their candidature. So part-time PhDs are incredibly important, and I think they will be increasingly important, to be frank. So don't believe the false narrative that a PhD is a young person on a scholarship in a PhD program. That is a very tiny group in the entirety of a candidature in universities. So therefore always ponder the ability and availability of a part-time enrolment. 8. Remember, where you start is not where you finish. If you want to do a PhD, then you know what's important? That you enrol and you start. Waiting for the dream supervisor or the dream university means that you are wasting precious time. You are wasting life. Remember that the best universities, the dream university, can restructure, and then it's a very, very different organisation. The best of supervisors can retire, resign, or they're restructured out of the university. The key with a PhD is to start, and to start with momentum. Because where you start is not necessarily where you finish. 50% of students start with a group of supervisors, but they don't finish with that group of supervisors. So they change one or more of their supervisors on the way through. And of course, transfers between institutions are increasingly common. I have 2 brand new students, hi Kate, hi Eunice, that are joining me, and they're both transfer students, transferring institutions to work with me for the final bit of their PhDs. And indeed, when I did work for Kate and Eunice, I realised that, wow, about 25% of all the students I've supervised through my career have transferred institutions, and that has often involved transferring countries. Okay, so get into a PhD program, and you know what? Start. The future is not promised, but you can start working today. 9. Take feedback on the failed application. Now, Little Hen 33 in her query asked me how she could improve her application. Firstly, Little Hen, let me look at you, look at you and say, I think you're doing everything right. I don't think you can improve it. And even now you're teaching, you're continuing to work on your research. Absolutely terrific. Keep reading, keep writing, keep publishing if you can. But always when you've got a failed application, and I know it hurts, rejection, I know it hurts, I'm going to handle the hurt next week, but I know it hurts. I want you to ask for detailed feedback. Some institutions, when they knock you back, it's like Tinder. Some institutions, when they knock you back, will give you a really stupid answer, right? And we'll deal with that in the final point in this vlog this week. But some answers may simply be excuses from the supervisor, and they have nothing to do with you at all. I think, to be frank with you, almost all of the rejections from a PhD program have very little to do with the student at all, and everything to do with the supervisor and the institution. So just remember that most refusals have very little to do with the student. But if you are getting feedback, you know, people know what they're doing, and you are getting feedback that says, look, you need to read a bit more, you're not quite on top of the topic, right? That's great feedback. Read more, get on top of the topic. Also, they might be suggesting, look, you need a little bit more care and help with your writing or your information literacy. That is great advice. Get yourself into a MOOC. Seriously, I do MOOCs all the time. Do a MOOC on writing, on reading, on note-taking, on information literacy. On Monday, I'm enrolling in a new MOOC on proofing and editing. So it's very important that you continue to do the professional development. And can I say, all those MOOCs, that's a fantastic use of time, and that will enhance not only your application, but actually your candidature. So if the prospective supervisor wants greater clarity on the proposal, then do that. That's quite a legitimate critique. I've had that a few times where the student clearly did need to read more and they need to write more. But make sure that the academic has to front up and give you that advice. And you need as much detail as possible. You don't need the sort of emails like, "You're dumped, bye girlfriend." Ask for feedback. I know it's emotionally volatile, but take that feedback, right? And if that feedback is about you as a researcher and your disciplinary literacy, then they've done you a favour. Do something about it. But I therefore need to remind you about my final bit of advice in the post this week. 10. Remember that the rejection is probably not about you. It's a mantra, I think, in this first 10 videos that we've done for the post, that we've talked a lot about the volatility of all our organisations, of all our institutions. But let me show you how this operates in doctoral education, okay? Here's a true story from a friend of mine. Last year. So this isn't 20 years ago, this is last year. He had accepted 6 new PhD students as a supervisor. They were international students, they were coming on scholarships. This is just tremendous. All was going well. So the students were accepted into the program, but then between being accepted and being able to enroll in the program, the supervisor was rendered redundant by the institution. Now, he didn't want to retire, he didn't want to resign, he was restructured out of the organisation with other colleagues. So in this circumstance, there may be academics that really want to supervise you, but they're made redundant, or they're about to retire, so there's no room in the lab. There's no funding in the lab. Indeed, scholarships may have reduced in number, or they're no longer meritocratic. They're given to mates, they're given to friends, yeah? Also, remember too that great supervisors have a lot of students, okay? I currently have 8 students, and they're wonderful students, extraordinary students. I meet with them weekly, and it takes me about a day to do the reading for those meetings. So 8 students, they're wonderful students, light of my life, tremendous. But remember that different disciplines have different requirements of supervisors. For example, in my disciplines, students do not write with their supervisors. That's rare. So therefore, I am supervising those students because I care for them. I don't get anything out of supervising those students. I don't get money or funding or wages or salary. I don't get publications. I don't get anything out of it except caring for them as our next generation. They are a blessing to me. But I am aware that there are plenty of supervisors that will not take on a student unless they get something out of it. So this is the group of supervisors that my student Jess, hi Jess, that Jess refers to as the sharks. So they're only wanting to supervise you if they can get their name on papers that you are writing. Now, ever since Jess used that description, I've described them as the sharks. I think it's absolutely brilliant. So be aware that great supervisors have a lot of students. And the supervisory sharks often don't have a lot of students, for obvious reasons, but they're desperate for them because they need the students to do the work. Remember, when you're researching your prospective supervisor, you've got to show respect to them, but also remember you're investigating them too. You're assessing them not only as supervisors or advisors, you're assessing them as humans. So you may have been rejected from a doctoral program because a supervisor's role is not stable. They've been restructured out of the organisation. There may be absolutely no money to support you. The supervisor may be going into another research direction, or the supervisor's roster of students is really full. So as you can see, most of the time, the rejection of your application has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with timing. So if you apply again, further down the line, you may be successful. And that is also why you apply to multiple institutions and to multiple supervisors. You also need to remember that you need to begin, and where you begin is not necessarily where you end. Okay, so there are 10 reasons why your PhD application was rejected. Little hen you rule, and let's try and make sure that you're not rejected next time. So the next post in our rejection trilogy is going to the emotional staff and the professional staff. So how you're able to lift yourself up again when your confidence has been bruised through that rejection. I wish you love, light and peace. Tea out.